I have been working with leather in very amateur way for a few years now, maybe 5 years. However, maybe I make a project or two a year. Today's project again is going to be a sheath that I'll be making for my new rifles that I am so excited to have. I was just at the gun show in the New York State Fair today. I bought myself a Winchester 94 model lever action gun and another Winchester 94 model lever action gun again. This particular one is wrapped in saran wrap because I am using a wet leather, technically hide, to form a sheath around it. I will be making a leather sleeve for them to make it easy to carry it in the woods and also to protect them. This particular one is calibered in 32 Winchester Special. The other one is 30-30. As I have mentioned earlier, I have wrapped the gun in saran wrap and put it inside the soaking wet hide. It's a very thick hide. I'm not sure about the thickness of it, but it is going to be a very durable case when it is finished. I have just outlined the overall dimensions of the rifle. I cut one side. I will be mimicking my cut to the other side, and then I'll refit it again. I put a couple of temporary stitches here to hold my hide in the form that the case will eventually be. Once I cut this, I will be tacking a couple more stitches on either side to help keep it in form, so I can actually design what my case should look like or how I want it to look like. I'll be throwing a couple of decorative pieces in it too and see how it goes. When I make my projects, I never have a design in mind. I just picture something. I don't have any plans. I don't have any dimensions. I don't measure and size things up. I just go as I start making it. And again, I have no training making any of these leather work. I just love working with it, and I like creating things out of nothing. I wish there were schools available, and what I wish more is I had more time to be able to attend these classes so I can actually create something really nice and valuable. I admire the artisans that can make things and make them look really professional with the right tools, right machinery, so that it looks excellent. But I like what I do and I like my hobbies. I just try. I have just put the rifle back in to make sure before I do my final cuts or shaping up there is enough slack and the rifle goes in and out easily. After I feel confident, I will start shaping up. I want to put a little strap holster so I can actually throw it over my shoulder or put it across my body to make it easier to carry in the woods. I will try to shape it up a little better and hopefully put some decoration on it, depending on how much time I have and how much effort I want to really put into this. I'm cutting the top portion of the case to fit the rifle and have enough room and add a little shape to it so it looks nice instead of being a square or a straight edge. Once I cut the top layer, I'll be mimicking my cut for the bottom layer, as again this is a very thick hide. The reason I can play with it and work with it is that I have made sure it was nice and moist, and so it's pliable and much easier to cut. few passes with a really sharp razor blade, the edge actually came out. I would like to put the rifle back in, see how much exposure we have. It looks good. It covers all the metal components and the action part. I deliberately wanted to leave some of the wooden stock out so I have a way to grip and slide it out as I need to. Essentially, this is going to be the rough shape of it before I start decorating and adding a little more accessories to the case. With this tool, what I'm making is a rough outline of where all my stitching holes will be going through, so that it is nice and equal. This spaces out the edge where this piece scores the leather. I want to make sure throughout the whole edging it's somewhat equal, so my holes are not wobbly, as I don't want it to look too amateur, despite the fact that, like I mentioned, I have no training, but I watched enough YouTube videos that I know what this tool is supposed to do and what it's supposed to help me with. I went salvage hunting. I found an old belt which actually has pretty cool pattern. What I'll be doing is a strap for the case to go across my shoulder so I can carry the whole rifle in a sheath on my back as I'm walking in the woods. I am punching holes for where my stitching will be going through, so it's nice and secure. And I'll put a couple of snaps on there too, but the stitching will ensure the strap is attached to the case nice and securely. I have this tool. What it does, it carves what I call a gutter, where I want the leather to be a little weaker so it folds easier for me to be able to attach my buckle. I will just score some lines. I may need a little more, just so that the tension on the leather folded in half is a little weaker. This seems like it's gonna need a little more. I will be attaching this in a little bit. I worked the leather a little better so that it actually molds. Actually, being a little old, it cracked a little, but it is nowhere near breaking point. It just stretched and it's a little brittle. I will be making sure I oil this leather so it's long lasting for me. Once we place the buckle in, we have to make sure we do it the right way. This is actually the buckle I wanted to use because it seemed to be fitting better for the width of the belt, which I'm going to use as a strap. Just like so. Now I need to put a snap here to secure the belt or the buckle. I will have to make a hole for my snap to go through and through. I probably should take this off. Before I take it off, I should probably mark so the hole lines up for the snap to go through. Once I know it is secure, I have to find the right side snap. I'll be showing you in a little bit. I just found a snap. This is a little tool where you line up your snap and there's a bottom to it, and you beat it down to help secure what I call a snap. I'm not sure what it really is called. That's what I call it, and I like it. Should probably beat it down a little better to make it tight, so it does not want to come out. Now that I have done this, I will be punching a few holes, just like a simple belt, so that it does have several holes, so I can adjust it to the length I wish, so that I can throw it over my shoulder as I carry the gun, like I mentioned earlier. Does go through. Oh, which reminds me, I probably should put a little belt on the side, so when I'm doing this, the extended part doesn't flap out. That I will create, maybe using a scrap piece of leather to make a little bridge, if you will, so I can just slide it in to hold the extended piece. Let me work on that. For this design, for this leather case, I found one of my old designs that I used before. Since this is going to be a hunting rifle, I wanted to go use this deer. It actually is slightly bigger than the area it's gonna be applied to. However, I think I can work with it. The majority of it will actually fit nicely, and for this we pretty much line it up. We have to trace the shape down to the leather and then use a special cutting tool to shape out the design and work all the details with specialty styluses that you pretty much hammer down to create the design with their depth and shading. For this design, for this leather case, I found one of my old designs that I used before. Since this is going to be a hunting rifle, I wanted to go use this deer. It actually is slightly bigger than the area it's gonna be applied to. However, I think I can work with it. The majority of it will actually fit nicely. And for this, we pretty much line it up. We have to trace the shape down to the leather and then use a special cutting tool to shape out the design and work all the details with specialty styluses that you pretty much hammer down to create the design with their depth and shading. I found a little shorter stud. Trying to secure this, and looks like it did pretty good. Just a snap. Again, what you do, there's the stud part. You put it through the hole in the bottom and you use one of the caps, and it has this little gauge that helps hold it in place and creates a solid surface. When you put it through and you hammer it down, it expands, it kind of mushrooms out the end and it secures it in place. Now that it's in, I want to give a couple more hits on it just to make sure it's nice and secure. And there's our little bridge. Now I'm going to be sliding this through, and voila. Now obviously the belt that I found is wet and also has been aged, and I'm sure it's been dyed before. It's dark brown, where the regular tan, just neutral colors. I will be doing some color matching. Now as you see, there are 3 different shades of brown. The dark, which apparently was dyed. This is still soaking wet, and this is completely dry. Much I didn't need to soak this because it was much lighter and thinner height. So once you dye them, you work them, hopefully it'll be nice looking and similar color. Yeah. Even if it was different, I kind of like the darker to a lighter tan. The case and the bridge will definitely be the same color even you leave it untreated, but you make sure you still definitely oil it. But I found my antique gel, which will give a nice darker aged look to the hide after I'm finished working with it. But this is pretty much ready to be attached to the case, and I will be punching more holes for it later once it is completed. I'll move on to working some designs on the case itself. For that, I have to undo it because the front is where I want to put a couple designs on. This is the back part. I'm not going to really worry about it because it's not going to show. In order for me to do this, I have to unfold the stitches. Now I'm going to just remove these couple strings that I did to unfold my case. Once it's all done and the design is worked, I will be punching more holes pretty much all the way along to seal the case so it is nice and secure. Now I have to go and find a pattern that I wish. I'll show you what I come up with, and I'll show you some videos of how I work the leather after I pick up the design that I wish to have on this. I'm gonna use this piece of scrap which was already edged nicely. I am just trying to measure out so it's not too loose or it's not too tight for the belt to go through. Right about here is where I like the distance to be. I'm going to mark where I should be punching another hole for my snap to go through. right about here. This is a lot thinner material. Hopefully my snap is not too long, because the longer the snap pin part is, the more awkward it looks, and it tends to bend and does not quite lock into place as nicely as you wanted it to be. So I'll be test fitting again for my hole to line up. I'll be securing this snap. Hopefully it works. For this design, for this leather case, I found one of my old designs that I used before. Since this is going to be a hunting rifle, I wanted to go use this deer. It actually is slightly bigger than the area it's gonna be applied to. However, I think I can work with it. The majority of it will actually fit nicely. And for this, we pretty much line it up. We have to trace the shape down to the leather, and then use a special cutting tool to shape out the design and work all the details with specialty styluses that you pretty much hammer down to create the design with their depth and shading. What I'm doing right now is tracing the shape onto this copy paper, trying to press hard so the imprint transfers onto the moist hide, and then at least get the outline in. The important part on this part of the project is not to move the paper, so your lines are pretty lined up and they do not double, because once you're pressing on it, the shape transfers onto the hide, which is relatively moist. It will not be reversible. The design is slightly imprinted here. The next stage will be cutting all those lines meticulously and get the edges a lot sharper, and use the specialty tools to work the leather to emphasize the design. The tool we are going to use is this. It's pretty much a little sharp blade. What it does, once you get the pattern that you wish to go with all set, you pretty much draw the whole picture onto the hide with the sharp blade. I'm not sure if you can see it. So this will continue forever, pretty much drawing the whole picture back with this blade. This is the lengthy part of this whole process. Transferring the design pretty much by using this specialty cutting stylus. I'm sure I'm using wrong names for these tools. That's what it feels like to me, so please don't judge me. Like I said, I've never been to any training of any type of school. Or in the case that the camera battery has died, I have started working on my pattern, as you may see, with special punches and a little hammer. You work your design and create the indentations which eventually raises your pattern that you have drawn on the template, and use the little specialty blade to cut around the edges, and you meticulously use different punches to create your shape and create a three-dimensional view and some shading.
So you're saying Daddy never donated the building to get you into an Ivy League school?
No. Well, there was a small off-campus library.
And Daddy never had to sneak you into an overpriced rehab facility to cover up?
This is the progress so far. As you may see, it is a time-consuming part of the process, but it does create that beautiful handcrafted three-dimensional design, which will be there forever as long as the leather casing lasts. It's important that whoever ends up having this case does treat it with the leather protection. I'm hoping that it will come out to be a nice case that is worth the time spent in it and the excitement that I have making it. A few hours later, sorry I couldn't record the progress. I ran out of battery. This is what I come up with. If I can focus. Here's the design. I added some straps and the adjustable strap. As you see, I used saddle stitching, drilled some holes. I wanted to just leave the design out here, didn't want to do much here because it will eventually wear out as you use the case, throwing in and out of a car or storing it in a cupboard or dresser, what have you, or the gun safe. So I wanted to keep the detail here. I want to add a little color, not painting in terms of greens and reds, whatever. I just want to accentuate the details. I'll be getting back to that shortly. When I dyed the case with antique gel or dark brown shade, if there are areas I want to stay lighter, I use the super sheen. It creates some sort of a residue on the surface when you rub the stain or the antiquing gel. The areas that you use the sheen on will remain lighter when it dries, so it will actually contrast the shading on the details too, darker to lighter. You may add a little color to it too, but it's too much work. I won't be spending any more time on that. Just to create some extra details, I'm using the super sheen on the outside edges, so it kind of leaves it a little lighter, just to give a little dimension to the case. It's not quite uniform, but just a natural wear look on the leather after I dye it. This hopefully will come out nice. I haven't tried this before, but why not? Just give it a little extra touches, protect the edge so it's not dark all the way across the case. I'm doing a couple extra coats to ensure that it will remain lighter than the rest of the case. I think that will suffice. I will be adding some darker sheen or antiquing gel and see how it comes out. For this portion of the process, since it's a little messy, I wanted to use some gloves because tomorrow when I go to work I don't want to have stained fingers or fingernails, which will make it look dirty. For this, again, I will be applying a generous amount of antique gel black for this to make a little darker look to my case, and hopefully add a little darker shade to the leather to match the scrap pieces I used and my scrap belt that I also utilized to make this strap to carry it easily. I also find some mahogany. And the gel black. As you see, the whole thing gets smeared with the black stain. However, the areas that I have applied that extra sheen earlier will create a lighter effect, so the detail of my image will actually pop in contrast to the background. Before it dries too, as you may see, the deer and some of the trees, I use that sheen. If you notice, as I'm wiping it down, it's actually remaining lighter than the rest of the background, which makes the image pop. I will be, of course, using this stain throughout the whole case to give a little uniform look and a little darker shade, like I said, to match the straps that I used earlier. So far, I'm pretty content with the outcome of the color. As you can see, even from a distance, you can tell the deer image apart from the rest of the, and with the correct lighting, I'm not sure how good it will come on the camera, the trees also are slightly lighter than the rest of the colors. I'm just gonna be continuing to dye the whole case thoroughly, and I may have to do a couple coats to get it quite dark, or at least close enough to match the strap, or at least until I'm content the strap doesn't stick out too far, being a completely darker brown than the rest of the case. To give a little more finished look on the edges, I'll be using edge coat. I mean, these things I have had for quite some time. They're rather old, but it'll probably still be fine just to give a little coating on the rough edges, help seal it, and give a little complete look as a finished product. What it simply does, creates a seal on the edges of the raw hide. Not only creates that little seamless look and gets rid of the fuzzy pieces, it will also help protect the leather as it will seal all the edging. Again, by no means I'm not a professional. I don't have the right tools or the equipment at all times. These are certain things that I've acquired throughout the years. They are very old, and most of the times I just try to utilize what I have had, not to be wasteful. Of course, with the right tools, right products, the paints and finishes and dyes and the edge coats, you may create much better creations, products, if you will. But by no means I'm not doing this to make a living or to sell them. I'm just doing it to satisfy my hobbies and give me that creative edge. I love creating things out of nothing. I always say those people who can make these do not have extra set of hands or extra brain cells. So my motto is, if they can do it, why can't I? And I go at it. I try different hobbies. I am definitely not a master in none, but I do okay, I hope. Of course, the judgment will be yours. However, again, this is to satisfy my own needs and my own hobbies, and hopefully leave my children some things that they may appreciate in the future after I'm long gone, thinking that their dad spent some time, made these things creatively, and hopefully will pass on to them. I'm applying some oil to help nourish the leather and somewhat waterproof it. It will probably need to be done a few times, or at least once a year, to keep the leather nice and moist so it doesn't crack and it stands against the elements a little better. Here, if you can see, is what I want to call my finished product. I may add a little accents to it to maybe decorate it a little better, but for now this will be one case that carries a Winchester 94 lever action gun. I happen to have two of the same guns, so I may try making another one, improvising and maybe improving things that I may think that I could do differently or somewhat better. But right now, this is what I'll call it quits.